George, you ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you all.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. This is Janet Topolsky at the Aspen Institute, and I want to welcome everybody here to a Strengthening Rural Family Economic Success, which we call RuFES, refresher webinar. That can be adapted by any rural community or rural organization, as far as we're concerned, to help rural families and communities turn pennies in their pockets into assets. Now, what we're going to do today is we are going to, this is me, I'm Janet Topolsky, and I'm co-director of the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group. I want to mention that this particular webinar is one of a series of RuFES webinars we've been doing off and on, no regular schedule, but when things seem to make sense for us to share. Some of those are groups, so we welcome you all. Each webinar is also, I should say, recorded and archived, so you and others can watch and listen again at your leisure. So if you find this is of value and you want to share it with someone who wasn't able to be on the webinar, feel free to give them the links, and they can get all the handouts as well as the webinar recording right off of a website that we will tell you about at the end of this webinar. And Renee will detail all the handouts you can get, as well as the webinar link at the end of this webinar. Today's topic is relevant, especially relevant now, because as everyone here I think knows, we're in tough economic times, tougher times daily for low-income families due to the economic downturn. So that has presented even more need for working families to really figure out a way to maintain or to build a financial cushion so that they can get through any kinds of family economic crises, and hopefully over time continue to save, continue to save, and build their assets. Now, I learned about Roll Your Change Week sometime, I don't know, probably about a year and a half ago, when a RuFES Action Network member named Judy Woodward, who's up in Gorham, New Hampshire, started sending me little emails about an idea she had picked up when she went to the National Community Tax Coalition conference a few years ago. And Judy Woodward happened to go to that conference because she was a member of the network, and someone from a New Hampshire team we had worked with in years past got an incentive from the RuFES Action Network to go to the National Community Tax Coalition conference. And she picked up this Roll Your Change Week idea from another program there and went back home to Gorham, New Hampshire, and started Roll Your Change Week. And it's now in its, I know she'll tell us later, I think, but 4th or 5th year. And she's been so creative with it that it just seemed like a really good topic for today's webinar to share with everyone in the network. Because any place, as I said earlier, could really adapt this, adopt it, change it up, however it makes sense for your community, and use it at home. So we've got together a set of presenters today who are first going to talk to you a little bit just about what RuFES, Rural Family Economic Success, is in the framework, and then the importance of savings for low-income families, working families, the basic components of Roll Your Change Week, which we're abbreviating as RYCW, and also how the concept has worked on the ground in a rural community, namely Gorham, New Hampshire. Just a couple notes on participation. Everyone here is on mute for now. We've got you all on mute because that minimizes barking dogs, annoying music, sinus coughs, or as we might say in this in this time period, maybe hot summer coughs. It's been pretty brutal here in Washington, D.C. at least. Also, if you have any clarifying questions, we're hoping you all see that little questions box that is in your webinar control panel. During the presentations, if George or Judy or Renee say something that you just don't get, please type in your question and send it. I will see the questions, or Renee will see the questions, and one of us will note it, and we will attempt to interrupt the flow and answer it. So that's the way to try to ask a question, a clarifying question, during the presentations. And we'll do our best to make that work. If you have more cosmic questions after the presentations, we're going to have the opportunity during the last half hour or so to raise your hand. And we will unmute you, and we'll hear your question and see if you have something to share, or if you want to ask, once again, a more in-depth question of Judy or of George. I will see it. I'll call on people in turn, and you'll be magically unmuted, and then I'll call on you. Or, once again, you can just type a question into the questions box if you prefer, or if you are shy, although I doubt many of you are. And once again, finally, if you have any technical problems, use the questions box in that menu. And if you want to know how to do something, or if you're not getting the audio. And we will, I'm sorry, I meant to make sure you could write these down. If it's a really bad technical problem, please email Renee at, and that first at should not be there, renee.bl@aspeninc.org, or call him at 736-2908, area code 202. He's standing by. So write those numbers down, 736-2908, area code 202, or renee.bl@aspeninc.org. With that, I want to just spend a moment introducing our presenters. The first one is Renee Bryce-Laporte, who's a senior associate with Aspen CSG, and Renee is going to give us a little RuFES overview. Then George is going to join us from the Consumer Federation of America in Cleveland, Ohio, Director of Youth and Financial Education, and he's going to talk to us about America Saves, as well as the origins of Roll Your Change Week. And then our friend Judy Woodward from the Family Resource Center in Gorham, New Hampshire, who's a senior associate, will talk to us about Roll Your Change Week in Gorham, New Hampshire. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Renee Bryce-Laporte of our staff. And Renee, oh, look at the magic green coming in. Renee, if you would talk about today's objectives and take it away. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Janet. So we have a few objectives for you here today, and basically the idea behind it is to make sure that you have a real concept of what Roll Your Change Week is, what kind of results it can have in your community, and how you can take on the challenge if it presents itself. So we're going to start out with a little bit of background on the origins of Roll Your Change Week, and one of our presenters is George Barani from the Consumer Federation of America, who actually came up with the idea of Roll Your Change Week, and he can talk to you some about the work that they do and the savings situation in the United States and what the effect that is, what effect that has, and how Roll Your Change Week fits into changing some of that right in your own communities. We'll talk some about the results of Roll Your Change campaigns in other communities. George will again talk more generally about Roll Your Change Week results, talk some about what he's seen in some communities around the country, and then we'll get into more depth with Judy talking about her specific experience in Gorham, New Hampshire. We also want you to understand the components of a quality Roll Your Change Week program. So, you know, any competent administrator, when looking at potentially taking on a new project, is going to want to know a few things. What can I get out of it, and how much am I going to have to put into it? So you're going to want to know about program structure, what kind of staffing you'll need, are there partnerships which are natural or desired, how much, again, it's going to cost you, and what you're going to need to do to promote it, and promotion is a big part of Roll Your Change Week. And then finally, we're going to want you to have a grasp on how your organization might launch a Roll Your Change Week campaign, which makes Judy and George really ideal presenters for you, so that you'll have an idea of, again, of what it's going to take if you decide to take on this project. Next slide. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the RuFES framework. RuFES is not a dog, though I was hanging out with a dog named Rufus last week. He's not an imaginary person. RuFES stands for the Rural Family Economic Success. That's something we work with along with the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And it has framework basically has three parts: earn it, keep it, and grow it. It largely being money. Earn it, meaning working families earn a living that allows them to survive, to thrive, and to raise their children in the community. So we're looking to help working families bring more money into their households, to allow them to make it in their worlds, but also to provide opportunity and provide some level of comfort. Keep it, working to help low-income communities keep what they bring or they're bringing into their households. So working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. So we want to make sure that folks aren't using savings vehicles or spending vehicles that are going to suck money out of their pockets and are making smart decisions in terms of their finances. And then finally, grow it. Grow it here is saying working families accumulate and maintain the next slide, please. Keep it. Okay. Royal Change Week fits very nicely into Keep It. Again, Keep It is working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. So, folks who are saving, there are several goals within the RuFES framework, I should say. Under Keep It, there are about 8 goals there, and 3 of them apply directly to Royal Change Week. One of them is families set short-term and long-term financial goals and attain them. People who save during Royal Change Week often not only save during that week, but are also been seen to save over the long term, and it really sparks their saving interest, and folks are particularly successful when they're goal-oriented and saving for certain items, be it a new lawnmower or their children's education, but having a goal is important. Families use reasonably priced services, accounts, and products for their savings, checking, and other financial transactions. Again, many of the people that are in Royal Change Week are getting new bank accounts, but a large number of them already have bank accounts. And using a financial institution account, again, is a safer way to have people take care of the funds that are in their household. And finally, K4, families reduce their debt burdens and improve their credit ratings over time. Families that have more money in their household can deal with debt and unexpected expenses in a much more efficient and predictable way. Next slide, please. Grow it. Okay. Royal Change Week also helps folks bring more income into their houses. Working families accumulate and maintain assets that gain value and advance family and community prosperity over time. Okay, among the Grow It goals we have, one of them is family members establish a financial cushion by regularly building their savings over time. Again, as I mentioned before, folks who are saving during Royal Change Week have often been seen to begin saving over longer periods of time. It helps them deal with the unexpected expenses that come up in life and help them deal with tough times. Family members increasingly participate in community activities and hold leadership roles. As you'll see from Judy's presentation, there are many people in the community that contribute to Royal Change Week and get roles where they are contributing to the community. There are some folks that are doing this as part of their jobs, and some folks who are doing this as part of just a community interest in strengthening their community. And finally, families' purchasing power, productivity, and entrepreneurship strengthens local businesses. Communities that have families that are economically secure prosper economically. People have more money to spend on businesses, even when people are saving more. It's better for the community as a whole. Individuals make for a strong community. So with that, I want to turn things over to George Barani, who will talk to us some about America Saves in general.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you, Janet, for the invitation to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that's Roll Your Change Week, one of those simple, easy kind of ideas that can have an impact, as Renee just described, but it's all about the execution. And so the context for the development of Roll Your Change was through America Saves, and it's a pleasure to introduce America Saves to those of you who aren't familiar with it. But it's a campaign that's organized by the Consumer Federation of America. We're one of the leading consumer advocacy organizations in the U.S., and most recently have gotten a significant amount of press around financial regulatory reform and our leadership in that effort. One of our campaigns, America Saves, was developed back over 10 years ago, really as a response to the low savings rate, and initially funded by the Ford Foundation, started in Cleveland to look at how can we develop a campaign that starts changing savings behavior and create a culture of saving in the United States. How do we turn this thing around? And can we create an effort that supports people, particularly low and moderate income individuals, to create a measure of financial stability? Next slide, please. So the crisis that caused us to be started a little more than 10 years ago when a combination of massive spend marketing along with the huge availability of credit for anybody and everybody caused us to shift how we think about money and saving. We became a consumer-oriented society where anybody could get anything, anytime, regardless of income or even credit history. It's just a matter of what you paid for that loan. So we came into being at a time when the national savings rate fluttered between 0 and 3%, as compared to 25 years ago when the national savings rate was around 12%. And so you can see from this chart that over the last 10 years in particular, we haven't done well as a society, but you'll see that starting towards the end of 2008, that the recession did much more to increase the savings rate than, candidly, our work and the work of all of us out there promoting financial education, financial literacy, and asset development. The recession really caused us to change our ways, and there isn't a day when the newspaper, TV station, doesn't do a feature on saving and strategies to save, whether it's for school, clothing, food, just household items. And so it's now once again in the lexicon. People are thinking about it. So it really can be our moment in time to make a huge difference and start shifting the patterns of behavior in this country before the economy improves and we go back to our previous spend-it-all ways. Next slide, please. So America Saves is a national initiative where we have currently over 210,000 savers coming through either 35 local campaigns, whether they be Philadelphia Saves to Tennessee Saves to San Diego Saves all across the country, to national efforts, military saves with the Department of Defense, Black America Saves, Hispanic Saves, and Young America Saves. And we tend to reach over 40 million people on an annual basis through America Saves Week, but all through partners, collaborators. You see some of them listed at the national level. We have over 400 national partners, along with thousands of local agencies, companies, institutions, organizations, religious institutions, government agencies, and campaigns. Next slide, please. We support all these stakeholders to provide impact to their own constituents, whether they be employees, congregants, customers, members, participants. The whole idea is, can we effectively reach people through the organizations and institutions in which they're involved, because we'll never have the dollars to spend marketing. And so we provide a wide variety of materials, resources, our websites, particularly our database, that can track what people have ambitions to save for, how much they commit. I can tell you that for those 210,000 plus savers, the #1 savings goal is an emergency fund. We can even break it down to a local level and average out deposits. We know young people, as an example, in Young America Saves are saving on average $20 a month for education. So we provide that kind of support to help organizations promote their own work, raise funds, so that when it's a call to action, people put money into accounts, open up accounts, create plans, make commitments, attend financial education classes, do a wide variety of activities, all focused on saving. Next slide, please. As you can see, we like to have some catchy materials. This flyer, I want to live with my parents for the next 30 years, can be turned into a poster, a payroll stuffer. Same with the saving money is now as easy as pie. This stuff has got to have some humor to it. It's got to have some fun to it. Money in general, especially when you don't have it and it's a problem, there's nothing funny about it. We don't want to deal with it. We've got to lighten it up, allow people the space to take action effectively with support, but we've got to be in their heads, and hopefully humor is a way to do it. Next slide, please. All these materials, by the way, can be co-branded. All right, let's get to the meat. Roll Your Change Week. This is one of those simple things that can be done by one organization, a community, a Boy or Girl Scout troop. It can be on any level because everybody's got change, regardless of income. Coinstar has established a very successful business. Those are those green machines in grocery stores and other places that'll take your change and convert it into something you can spend with for a fee.
George?
And their success. Yes.
George, just to interrupt, those green machines in grocery stores may not live everywhere, so I just want to mention that in some urban places, I'm not sure how many rural places have them now. You can actually have there's a big green machine. It looks like a vending machine installed where you can bring coins and have them rolled for you by the machine. That's what you're talking about, right, George?
It is.
Yeah.
And they charge a fee for that. They don't actually roll it. They translate it into something you can spend, either a receipt at the grocery store, or they have AOL. Online stores that you can purchase from. But
they do charge a fee. They do charge a fee.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do.
And
that's how
Coinstar
they
is
make
the
money.
company. Coinstar is the company that operates those.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And that's okay. And they're successful because we don't really like to roll change. That's something we've gotten away from. And candidly, banks and credit unions don't like taking it. It's a hassle for them. It ties up their tellers, and it costs them money to transport. So they don't really like taking it. So the concept here is once a year, we'll roll it, and they'll take it. And it can be an easy and effective way to either open up or add to an account. Next slide, please. Some of the promotional materials that have been used, the one on the left is Cleveland, the one on the right, Milwaukee. We've got lots of examples of these flyers. They all tend to promote the week, show change, and list partners. Next, please.
George, one other thing I wanted to note here is that there is no one roll your change week, correct? Anybody can declare any week roll your change week.
That is correct.
Okay.
Some of our partner organizations do Roll Your Change Week as part of their America Saves Week activity. Others, and you'll hear from Judy, tend to do it in the third week of October because we've had some bankers in particular tell us that's a slow time. And we were looking for, at the local level, offering two initiatives that can keep saving front of mind, Roll Your Change Week and America Saves Week.
But if my community had some reason they wanted to make 4th of July, Independence Day, Roll Your Change Week, I could do it.
Yes.
Okay, good.
This is for you to do whenever it makes sense for you to do.
All right, great. Thanks, George.
Sure. So the key components, financial institutions, primary. They're taking the money. So they've got to be excited. They've got to promote it. They've got to have their people trained to take it, know what to do. You can't have a bank or credit union say to you, well, I guess we'll do this, but you deliver the people. It doesn't work that way, and it doesn't work very effectively. You won't get very many people participating. I mean, their reach is larger than ours as nonprofits. They know how to market better than we do, and they have a steady stream of people coming into their facilities on a daily basis. They got to get juiced up about this and want to do it. We can help support it with community marketing by issuing press releases, trying to get a media partner, trying to place articles, certainly posting flyers and posters wherever it makes sense. And if we want to take it to this level, we start identifying organizations, companies, schools, community organizations where we can make presentations and or get some notification about this in their newsletter and or somehow participate in their special events to promote it. Tracking is key in terms of, and you'll see in the next slide, we provide some kind of incentive to get people to self-report, fill out a piece of paper identifying their contact information and how much they're depositing. And that gives us our tracking tool of how much, not only total, but per branch and even largest deposit if we want to go that far in terms of our tracking. We'll get more into that in the next slide. Obviously, a coordinator, somebody's got to make this thing happen like anything else, and that's an important role. And the budget totally depends on how much and the reach, how many people you want to reach in this effort and who's involved. If it's just done in a Boy or Girl Scout troop, there's probably no budget involved. But if it's done on a community-wide level where you need flyers, posters, then some money is involved in particular. So this form is what a bank teller or a credit union teller would hand to somebody making a deposit for them to fill out indicates which branch of what financial institution they're doing this in and how much they're depositing, and that gets put into a box or a bowl or handed back to the teller, or puts it into an envelope. And ultimately, this becomes a raffle ticket for a drawing of one prize, or maybe even several prizes, whatever is determined based on budget and resources. But this allows you to create an Excel sheet, and we've got examples of all this stuff, but you create an Excel sheet that shows what bank, how much, which branch, largest deposit. Simple. A little painstaking because it's got to be done by hand, but still simple.
But George, to ask you that what makes this interesting is that so you can organize or roll your change week many different ways, and Judy will tell us one way right now. But even if you didn't have volunteers rolling the change, if you declared to roll your change week and said, bring your money in penny rolls or dime rolls to the bank, you'd still have the incentive just by the fact that if I deposit in my bank and I fill out this form, I've got an entry in a drawing for savings bonds. So it's like a financial incentive even if you didn't have volunteers working on this, right?
Yes, and Judy will talk about her situation. There are some campaigns that have volunteers actually roll change for people. The majority don't.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days of Cleveland Saves, we actually printed up, because we had some resources, change wrappers with Cleveland Saves on it. So it was a nice little marketing gimmick.
If you offer the incentive, you're more likely to get people to actually deposit it in the bank as opposed to not offering it. I mean, I could roll my change and take them down to the local drugstore, too. So, this is a really wonderful little no-cost incentive in a lot of ways, I mean, except for the fact that you're going to raffle off a savings bond. All right, cool. Next.
Yep, next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just to give you, this takes Cleveland because Cleveland was the first to do this. I just wanted to give you a sense that here planning would begin in July with the third week of October as the launch date for it. And, activities are, meeting with local politicians, making sure financial institutions are committed to participating so they can have their names listed. If you want to go to schools, that tends to be a logical, once again, easy, fun place to do this. We've even had experiences where a bank has paid for a school bus to pick up all the kids and shuttle them back and forth between the closest bank branch to open up accounts and make deposits. Next slide, please. So it continues, with some marketing and some advance press work in terms of just putting out releases, making sure that the financial institutions have what they need in terms of flyers and posters, and then just the same old reminding. This is basic organizing to get people to participate in an event. Getting all these slips from the banks and credit unions afterwards is obviously important, mushing them all together, holding a drawing, maybe with, it'd be nice to have some independent person do the drawing. Could be a nice little media event to have a local mayor or county council or school board official maybe do the drawing. And then you have your winner. Issue your release in terms of your impact. Next, please. So this is, and I have more up-to-date information, but this was the nicer and easier slide. So you'll see from 03 through 06, once again in Cleveland, the number of participating financial institutions, what that translated to in terms of branches, the total number of participants, deposits, and then the average deposit per participant. And the change in terms of participation. So this can generate a significant amount of money, but based on the number of these branches, you can clearly tell that not all of them were very aggressive about getting their customers to participate. This ultimately translated into a fairly few number of branches whose manager got it and really promoted it. Next slide, please. So just quick examples. In Akron, Ohio, Towpath Credit Union actually in 4 days realized $250,000 in deposits. They offered a huge incentive on their own, 10% on the first $1,000 deposited. And people just were bringing in sacks of money. They had one person who brought in $2,000 that had been accumulated at home. And you'll be surprised, there are some people out there who have got some significant amounts of money, but once it starts accumulating, it becomes daunting to roll it and take care of it, so it just continues to accumulate. And we provide, through this effort, an easy way to make a deposit. Plus, the credit union got 850 new members. Charter One Bank, as you can see, had in 03 64 deposits totaling a little over $3,700, averaging $43. And that climbed up to $68 in 04. There is a progression to this. I can tell you that in Cleveland, this event has been institutionalized. The banks and credit unions pretty much organize and run it on their own with support from the Cleveland Save staff. But this thing has begun to run sort of like clockwork. And then Northwoods, Wisconsin, Rhinelander, that area, very, very rural, had 11 financial institutions participating in 04, 64 depositors. But even those 64 depositors deposited over $5,000. I can tell you that 2 years ago in the same community, they had 7,000 students, young people. Take that back. I'm sorry. They had 120 young people deposit $7,000. So this stuff continues to surprise me in terms of how much money gets deposited by even just a small number of people. Next slide, please. I am available to be of support to you, and please don't hesitate to email and or call. Happy to provide you with information and resources. And just encourage you to take this on regardless the size, as Janet said, regardless of the time period, because I think it will provide value, and it certainly is a great complement to the other work that you do. Thank you.
George, thank you so much. And can I ask, let's just practice a little bit. If anybody has a quick or a clarifying question, if you can go over to your side menu and you can raise your hand. If you see the little icon that looks like raising your hand, and I'm going to look and see if anyone's hand is raised to see if any of you want to ask any questions. So we'll be in your side menu. Can you give a better description than that, Renee?
No, I think that's it. On your side menu, there's a list of attendees here, and yeah, you raise your hand there.
You click on the little hand icon in your control panel.
I see Lana Winfrey there has a question.
I'm going to unmute Lana. Lana, join us. What's your question? Or is it Lana or Lana?
Lana.
Lana, what question have you got for George, Lana?
To participate in the Roll Your Change, do you need to be a participant in America Saves itself?
No, not at all. This is an opportunity that we hope people just take on, and if America Saves fits into your work as well, that would be terrific, even just participation in the week. But this resource is here for you to use regardless.
Yeah, America Saves is an ongoing program of the Consumer Federation of America, and there are lots of different things that America Saves might offer you. Roll Your Change Week is just one idea in their sort of toolbox of ideas for how you can help to promote saving.
And Janet, Jill Lorem has her hand up too.
I see that. Jill, would you join us? Oh, hold on. Jill, I tried to unmute her and she got muted. Have you unmuted Jill, Renee?
Let's see. Maybe, let me see if I can do this.
Jill,
here.
we're trying to get to you.
How's that? Jill?
Muted.
I'm not sure what's happened. But why don't we move on then to, while we're trying to work that out, Jill, let's move on to Judy. And Judy, if you would get us started with talking about Roll Your Change Week in Gorham, New Hampshire. Judy, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Janet. It's great to be here and great to be talking about Roll Your Change Week, and especially great We are the Family Resource Center here in Gorham, New Hampshire. Our tagline is strengthening families and building communities. And some of the programs that we offer are family support and parent education programs for positive parenting skills, after school and summer youth programs. We do a financial literacy program. Building Financial Futures Asset Building Coalition is an organization we started. And the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, or more commonly known as VITA, and also the Coos County Family Support Project. Next slide, please. Primarily we serve low and moderate income families, which is probably the target population for most people on the call. We're in Coos County as opposed to Coos County. You can see the little dots over the second O. Our population is quite low for the amount of territory we cover. We're 31,487 people, which results in about almost 17 and a half people per square mile. Our median income is $33,000, a little over that, and it's 32% less than the state median income. So where we are in northern New Hampshire, we are above the notches, and because of transportation issues and economic issues, we just have a totally different economic climate than south of the mountains.
Now, Judy, you have to explain what above the notches means for those people who don't have notches in this state.
Well, in New Hampshire, we have mountain notches that basically they have carved a notch through the mountainside so that you can have roadways up through into the northernmost regions. And we have, I believe we have 3 mountain notches just in our proximity, but it really reduces the amount of everything that you have. You know, we travel 2 hours to a shopping mall from where we are. So we're used to travel, and we do it because the payoff is to live in a beautiful community with not a lot of traffic, not a lot of crime. So, you know, it's a trade-off, but it's a beautiful place to live, although almost 20% of Coos residents actually receive Medicaid compared to 11% for the state. So the economy is right now in a significant downturn, and it's transitioning. We're shifting away from the manufacturing economy because at one time, Berlin was known, and still is, as the city that trees built. We once enjoyed having a really thriving economy from the paper products industry. And several years ago, the paper mill closed and actually left Walmart and our hospital as the remaining major employers. We've had an increase in unemployment. Part-time work has increased, so very little benefits with that. And we have an aging population as youth leave to find employment. And there's been a substantial increase in the number of single-parent families. So we've had some very significant economic issues that we've been facing and we're transitioning out of. Next slide, please. About 3 or 4 years ago, we decided that we really needed to look at the issues being faced by the local residents, the economic issues, and family economic stability was a major concern. So we actually formed an asset building coalition, and the coalition identified and set off to address some of the issues that we felt were most important for the community. And credit was definitely one of the big issues. So we set about doing credit repair clinics, and we had financial workshops, and they were successful for the people who attended, but we did notice a low attendance, and we began to feel the strong need to do something that would really engage the public. And if you'll go to the next slide. We wanted to sponsor a community-wide event to focus attention on the importance of savings and being prepared for life's emergencies, because so many of our clients didn't even have $50 in the bank, and if they had an issue with their automobile or some other unexpected emergency, it was more than a bump in the road. It was a cliff that they were going off. So we wanted to really promote that savings attitude, and we knew it had to be something that was going to be fun, and we wanted it to be engaging so that people would really think about it. And our biggest feat was that we really wanted to change the framework of savings from a need to a want, kind of combating those spend messages that we're getting every single day. We wanted people to want to save as bad as those spend messages were making them want to spend. Next slide, please. And enter National Community Tax Coalition and America Saves. I attended a National Community Tax Coalition annual conference in Los Angeles, and Nancy Register from America Saves was speaking about the success of the Cleveland Saves Roll Your Change Week campaign. They had just finished, and when she was speaking about the amount that was being deposited by the residents in the Cleveland area, it really appealed to me on several levels. I was totally amazed by the dollar amount deposited. And it really did appear to be a fun and interesting way to engage a community. And it was applicable to all income levels, which really appealed to me, and it seemed easily replicable. And I kept thinking all on the trip home and for the week after about the amount, the dollar amount that was deposited. And it was as though somebody had just let me in on a great secret, that if you take a lot of pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters and you put them all together, then you can end up with some really significant dollar amounts. And then when you look at savings the same way, of course I went to America Saves website and I looked at what they talk about as the savings journey being one step at a time, and thinking about, if you'll go to the next slide, Janet, the small steps and small change can add up to really big results. That's the middle bullet here, but I kind of jumped ahead. It just really impressed me how those little pieces of change could add up to such a big dollar amount, but it's also those small steps of remembering to save that change every night and just throw it in a jar, and then remembering to deposit it, that add up to large savings results. And another reason it was a wonderful fit for us was because we had that successful role model of best practices via America Saves and Cleveland Saves, and they were very helpful in allowing us to use some of their marketing materials and giving us the roadmap to do our campaign. And the startup cost was very, very minimal. And that was important because in a bad economy, nonprofits feel the pinch as bad as the community. Next slide, please. Some of the major components for us regarding Roll Your Change Week was we wanted to use behavioral economics to change the concept of what savings means and to frame it differently as a want, as I had mentioned before. We just are bombarded with messages on a regular basis that are telling us to part with our money, but very few messages telling us that we should save. We wanted to reconnect people with the value of money, beginning with small change, and that relates to what I just talked about, how it all just adds together to be such a large amount. And we wanted to present an incentive to motivate the savings mindset and to encourage behavioral change. The incentive, I kept noticing that people were spending a lot of money on lottery tickets and thinking, if only we could just take that mindset and say, if you put that dollar every time you buy a ticket into a savings account, in 20 years you'll have a significant amount of money, and it's a sure thing. So we got the idea of using the savings bonds to try to motivate the savings mindset and get people in the habit of saving. Next slide. Better than it already is. Next message. In getting started, the first step is to find a campaign coordinator who's the central contact person and project manager. They can be paid or they can be volunteer. In my case, I'm a paid employee for the financial literacy program, so I'm the central contact person. It really is helpful if you have an asset building group or some other support agency, and like George mentioned, it can be Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or a church youth group even. Any group that is interested to work together to just try to bring that savings message out into the community. And you do need some partners. And if you go to the next slide. One of the first major partners that you would need is your financial partners, and that would be representatives from financial institutions. And I use the word institutions because I have a very active credit union member of my coalition, and she tells me that it's really not kosher to use the word bank all the time because they're a credit union, but they're still a financial institution. So that's my terminology. You'll hear me refer to financial partners or financial institutions. So they're an important piece of it, and if you can get them involved in the planning process, you'll find that it's much less of a struggle than you might think, and they come up with ideas that are amazing. We've had a wonderful opportunity to have members from banks and credit unions sitting at the same table, and they're all coming up with ideas to help the community and to encourage savings. Some of the things they provide for us is each of our local branches of each financial institution will actually have a $100, a drawing for a $100 Series EE bond at that location. So they take all of the entries from that one location and they do a drawing for that $100 savings bond at the end of the week. And that's a cost to them of $50 per branch. Then they all contribute $75 per branch toward the grand prize drawings, and those are $1,000 savings bonds. They send me the check for the $75 per branch, and we were able to offer 3 regional drawings last year. So we were able to try to make it so that it was in a small enough radius that if someone won, the other people who entered would maybe know of that person so that they would feel like this really could happen to them as well. This year we are expanding again, and we're hoping to be able to do up to $5,000 savings bonds, because we'll be going even further beyond the Coos County borders and taking a larger geographic area. So the total cost of the program that we do is $125 per branch. So they
can I ask you, how many financial institutions do you have involved, and how many branches?
Last year I had 7 financial institutions and 21 branches. This year I'm still getting word in, but I will probably double that number. I'll probably have about 12 to 13 financial institutions, but about 40 to 45 branches.
And how many of them are credit unions versus banks of the lead?
We have 3 credit unions, and the remainder are banks. But we have some savings banks and some community banks and some national banks.
Did you have difficulty convincing the first one? Is it easier now, or how did you do it? Did you
the first year it involved a lot of sales on that first year. I had to explain what the program was repeatedly, and I got once I had one on board, then I was able to call the next one and say, just wanted to let you know about this program, and I wanted to also let you know that your competitor down the road is going to be doing this, and I didn't want you to miss out. I didn't want you to be the only one not being able to participate. And
how tactically brilliant of you, Judy.
Well, who wants to be the only one not participating? It would be terrible if I were a bank branch manager or credit union manager and realize all of a sudden that everyone around me was doing this, but I wasn't. And I actually did have one person the first year who said, no thanks, I think we'll pass. And then one of the other financial institution partners called them and said, you know, you may want to reconsider this because you're the only one, and we really want it to be unanimous in the community. And it worked. It was great.
Well, I mean, that's really good. I mean, it's just a nice thing to think about. If you get the first one to agree, then it's probably easy to get the rest of them. And but you got to sell that first one, so you probably want to start with your friendliest financial institution. So, for example, if your organization has a banker on the board, that's where you're going to want to start, or a credit union person on the board. That's
definitely. Yeah. And the first year, we only offered a $500 savings bond for the grand prize. We didn't have a huge buy-in from them financially, so we started with the $100 per branch and then the $500 as the grand prize, and we expanded last year by 4 communities, so that's why we increased it to the 1,000, and we did the 3 different grand prize drawings. And it's amazing how the prospect of winning a $1,000 savings bond just gets people motivated. And of course, with your financial partners, the engagement is essential, and getting them to be interested and to want to participate is very important. And a lot of that is just letting them know what's in it for them, because they're in business to make money, and you know, they need to know what it is that they'll be able to get from the Roll Your Change Week program. And let's see. And the other thing that they do for us now is the financial partners. Initially, I had to do all of our own printing, and I had to pay someone to do that. Now, I will provide them with an electronic copy of the documents, the entry form, which they will put in their branch location before they run off the copies, so they don't have to write it in on each one. And then they will also print out the posters and the envelope stuffers. So I only have to do the ones that are going out into the community. Another thing that they offered to do for me last year that was very helpful is to do a little thank you for the frontline teller staff after the campaign. They get a huge amount of heavy, very dirty money coming over the teller lines, and I'm really thankful that they work so hard and they welcome people with a smile. So I just want to make sure that they're recognized for their efforts, and the banks and credit unions will actually do donuts or cookies or something for them the Monday following the event. And then I usually will send a little thank you card to each financial institution, to the teller specifically, and do a letter to the editor thanking them. And again, that's a way of getting the information about Roll Your Change Week in the paper repeatedly so that you constantly have, you're visible in the community. Next slide, please.
Yeah, it sounds like a new punk rock song, Heavy Dirty Money.
It does,
no, it's a new rock and roll song, Heavy Dirty Money. Speaking of which, let's move on to this.
The other partners that are really important, and the ones that I've had a lot of fun with, are the schools and the youth program. They work very hard at a lot of the marketing for you, and we organize rock and roll events, which are groups of either high school or other youth groups that get together and they listen to music, which is the rock, and they roll change for the public as a community service, and that's the roll piece of it. The name was just catchy, so we went with it. We always have a child or a student who has an iPod and they plug it into speakers, and they take care of the music portion. I bring the wrappers that I get from the banks or credit unions, and I bring tubes that sort the money. All of the social service agencies, financial partners, schools, media, and of course the people who participate. I use any medium I can to get the information out there. We have meetings of different agencies that meet here once a month, and I will have brochures or stuffers ready for them so they can take them to their communities, because travel is a real issue where we are, so it saves me an enormous amount of time to be able to give a stack of 40 or 50 stuffers to someone who's going to take it to Coburg, which is an hour away from me. And then they distribute it in the community there. And I do that with little satellites all over our coverage area, so it's much easier. And next slide, please. Back to the rock and roll events, and I love the guitar, Janet. That was just terrific. The high school students that I've worked with have been great. Last year we were able to get Dick Arcan from the New Hampshire Banking Department to come up, and he actually did some quizzing of the students on debit cards and bank fees, and they were rolling change, so they were. It was an opportunity to get those people who learn audibly because he was talking to them about the quizzes, and the tangible learners, so they were touching the coin, so they were asking him for more questions. It was just amazing. They were saying, give us another one, Mr. Arcan. So it was a definite opportunity for teachable moments, and it's a great opportunity for the community because you have people who maybe don't want to take the time to roll their change, or we had one young man who brought in his grandmother's tin. It was a popcorn tin, and there was $1,200 in change in that. So I just can't imagine his grandmother rolling all that change. So it worked out really well that he was able to bring it in, and the kids rolled it. And we also
big coins, Judy, or
that was a lot, mostly pennies. That was a lot of pennies. It took them one table of about 5 people the entire evening, which was about 2 hours, to roll all of that change. We only do one person's change at a table so it doesn't get mixed up. And I do have a handout that really details, the specifics, if you want to do a rock and roll event, on what the procedure is and what worked for us anyway, and you can adapt it however you want to. I just found that it was really good to have it written down, and if I have other people in our communities that want to do it and I can't be there, I can give them this procedure guide and they can do it themselves. Some of the interesting comments that we got, I actually had one young lady who said, I usually just throw away pennies because they aren't worth anything anyway. And I said, oh, okay. And it's interesting because when they walk into the room, I ask them how much they think will roll that night, and we write down their guesses. At the end of the night, after we've tallied everybody's change that has been rolled, we announce how much has actually been rolled. This young lady was so enthusiastic. She went home and cleaned out her car, and she found $10 in her car. We had another young man who said, I just use Coinstar, and that gave us an opportunity to talk about bank fees and interest rates, and we talked about the cost of the coin sorters and how he could spend $7 for those and be able to keep all of his money from then on. And the social marketing campaign really continues as the family-centered approach. Next slide, please. What does it cost to do a Roll Your Change Week? For us, the campaign coordinator's time as project manager, and the printing and design costs for posters and stuffers. In our case, I only print about 100 posters, and last year I was able to get a local printer to do those free, and then I did the stuffers in-house because we had purchased a new printer that could handle that. So we reduced our cost on that. And again, people are very, very happy to help you out. People who already have it in the budget or who happen to have funds to be able to do that, they're wonderful. A lot of my financial partners have been great about printing extras for me to put in the community. The time and other costs of promotion, such as speaking or advertising, and the cost of prizes is probably the most significant expense. But again, if your financial institutions are on board, they recognize that the first year they do this, it's not going to be a money-making venture for them. But the goal is, and what we have seen happen is, the first year you have new accounts and you have people adding to existing accounts, and then they build on those existing accounts each year. We actually, on our entry form, have a place that says new or existing so that we can track how many new accounts. And they're not a lot each year, but I get reports because we're small enough. Our financial people tell me that they're seeing the same people come in each year and adding to accounts that they had opened years before. And of course, the cost of refreshments for the rolling events, but that's minimal, and in some cases, the student senate or honor society will cover some of those costs. But I usually try to bring cookies or something just to show my appreciation. And whoever gets closest to that guess at the rolling events, I will solicit prizes in the community, usually like a coin jar that something to do with savings, something that will reinforce the idea of savings. And I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. The community has been amazing. And I think next slide. The real measurable RuFES results, the earn it, keep it, and in this case, grow it, in 2007 was our first year of doing the Roll Your Change Week. We were blown away that $18,175.87 was deposited. We have a population in this community of 12,104. I don't think everybody participated, but the ones that did, put in a significant amount of money. 2008, we had some economic setbacks, and I really expected it to be less then, and I was just hoping we'd hit 15,000. We actually hit 19, almost 20,000 that year. In 2009, we expanded. We started to get requests from other communities. People said, why aren't we able to participate? So it was that happy coincidence when you say, oh, by all means you can participate. And so we expanded it to Lancaster, Groveton, Littleton, and Whitefield, and that population was 25,705. And we ended up with a significant increase in the change deposited, a little over $35,000. So in the 3-year period that we did it, in that 1-week time period of Roll Your Change Week, we saw $73,000, a little over that, in deposits. And in 2009, I worked with Kerry Gladstone from the Franklin Family Resource Center, and he decided to do a similar event in the Franklin Concord area with his Asset Building Coalition. Their first year, and they did it in August, so it doesn't have to be the same exact time period, they saw deposits of $43,790. So when you look at the total impact of what that one little meeting with Nancy Register, some 4 years ago at an NCTC event and hosted by I was gotten there by RuFES, we've seen $117,000 in deposits, and that's in just loose change. So it's pretty significant how the little small steps and the small change really do add up to big results. And next. Now, some of the other saving success stories that we've seen that you can't really, we don't have any way of tracking, but these are things that people say to me, people with no previous and what their goals are. So that was really interesting and a very positive impact. Another is the new connection to the value of real money, not plastic. I think that our society has become very reliant on plastic, and people have kind of lost touch with the emotional attachment to their money and understanding the value of what actual coins are. A lot of the youth that we worked with were really shocked at how the pennies added up to such significant amounts, and there were many, many aha moments. And we had so many people who really saw that, how can this be so great? It's just so simple. We don't understand it, but it's wonderful, and we're going to do it. We've had a lot of people who actually say, I'm going to give up some small daily purchase to save the cost of the item, and that behavioral change is the basis for developing the ongoing positive saving habits. So once you start seeing behavior change, then you can really see significant change. Next slide, please. If I knew then what I know now, is there anything I'd do differently? Looking back, trying to determine if there was anything that I would change. I think that in our first year, I was new to this, so I actually called each financial partner after sending them the letter, inviting them to participate, and I got them on board to do it, and then I let them know how much it was going to cost once I knew how many branches were participating. So it was too open-ended, and I think some may not have participated because they just didn't feel comfortable that it wouldn't get expensive. Now I just do the flat rate. If I end up getting a lot more, then I'll just have more $1,000 drawings, or I'll run a full-page ad in the paper or something. And I would do more of the rock and roll events because of the teachable moments and the buzz that it created in the community, and getting kids talking about money, getting families talking about money. I think it would have been really good to have more of those. Plus, it's very rewarding to be a part of those events. And better funding, I think that Roll Your Change Week and asset building, as an asset building initiative, is very fundable. I would have sought funding from a non-financial institution to cover the cost for the first couple of years instead of using the funding from my current financial literacy grant, because I think that this is an idea that is it's simple, but it's very, very doable, and it's successful. I was amazed at how it has grown from what it started. Next slide, please. Tips to remember, just a couple of tips, is the branding concepts, trying to follow the best practices of other campaigns. I use Cleveland Saves as my model. And of course, remembering to say thank you. Your mother was really right. Don't forget to say thank you to those who helped to make your campaign work, and be sure to let them know that, and specifically because of them, such and such amount has been deposited into savings accounts in their community, and let them know that their efforts really have an impact, because everyone really wants to know that if they expend their energy, that it's actually going to have an impact. And next slide, please. And what does Roll Your Change Week do for you? Build significant social capital. It increases community awareness of your organization and the other services you offer, and provides a source for participants in your financial education activities. People see your logo, they see your name, and when you have an event, they're more likely to make that phone call to sign up for one of your events. We also market Roll Your Change Week anytime we go to a health or wellness fair or an employee wellness fair. Any public event that we have, we're out there marketing and letting people know it's coming to keep saving their change. It also expands your network, and it opens doors to financial institutions and employers, so you can access financial specialists if you have any workshops or anything that you're offering for financial education, or you can offer other services in the future. If you're working with employers, you can go in and maybe pitch a budgeting workshop, or how to get your free credit report, or many, many different things that you can do. We actually did a vacation club as a stealth asset building and budgeting workshop at one point. So, you know, there are lots of ideas out there. Next slide. And of course, please do try this at home. I hope everybody that's on the call will decide to take part in a similar campaign. The financial institutions receive that positive press, and they build social capital. New accounts are open, and many accounts are added to in subsequent years, and they also develop tremendous customer loyalty. And the schools benefit from the positive method of introducing or reinforcing financial education, and that's in many cases becoming a required component of many schools' curriculum. And in the community, the residents begin to think differently about how they spend and how they save. They have increased awareness of the need for emergency savings and a simple method for achieving the success. And it increases the financial stability of the community members and decreases the demand on social services as well. And that's it. Thank you very much, and I hope all of you will go out and do your own Roll Your Change Week initiatives. And I can tell you that it's not as difficult or as expensive to do as you might think. It can be done on a shoestring.
Judy, I can't thank you enough, and I really, you know, am once again happy that we decided to ask you to explain this approach to helping people save. That's very adaptable and very doable in any number of communities. You know, I want to, I have a question for you, but before that I want to ask everybody on the phone, once again, if any of you have questions for George or for Judy. please raise your hand. And the way you do that in your control menu, there's a little hand icon, and all you have to do is hit on it, and Renee will notice if you've done that and will then let me know to unmute someone. And by the way, Jill, the reason we couldn't unmute you is you didn't enter your audio pin. If some of you did not enter your audio pin when you got on, then just type your question into the question box, and we'll see the question, and we will answer it. We do have one question in there, and so let me read that. I don't know. Renee, can you read it? I've got Judy or George. Do either of you know of programs, here we go, that do roll your change in connection with asset building activities at VITA sites during tax season? And I'm not sure who asked that, but
it was actually Jill.
That was Jill.
Oh, okay.
So Jill, thank you for modeling, typing your question in. So did you hear that, George and Judy? Do either of you know?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know of any. You know, the VITA sites tend to be places where people just want to come in and get their taxes done and get their refunds as quickly as possible. Change tends not to enter into that space, so I don't know of any efforts that coincide with that.
Mm-hmm. I agree, George. I second that because we actually had thought about doing that, but I also run a VITA site, and it's just such an enormous pressure to get those taxes done, and people really need the funds immediately. They're just not in the mindset of saving at that moment. They're needing to get the money to pay their rent or their oil bill.
We've got oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Janet, and you may have been about to say this, that there's another question in there.
Right, we've got a question from Robin Robertson saying, my executive director wants to know if he can get a copy of the slides on the webinar. And Renee, why don't you remind everybody how they're going to be able to get that?
Sure. Janet, if you could actually advance 2 slides, they can get the visual while I say it.
Well,
information that I think you'll find valuable if you decide to pick up on this idea, including a procedure guide for the rock and roll events, a timeline, some of the public relations posters. George has a summary of how it worked in Cleveland Saves and the results there. So I think you'll find there'll be good information there. Web address is aspencsg.org/RuFES, RUFES/about/resources.html, and it's right there in the webinar page of these slides.
And we'll be emailing that to everybody as well.
Exactly right. Thank you very much.
We'll email that to everybody. Now, once again, if any of you have questions, and Teresa Walker, I noticed that you also asked a similar question, which was, can the handout for rock and roll events be shared with the attendees, which obviously it can. And I think the motto of this webinar is steal this idea. So go ahead and change all of Judy's local names to your names and go ahead and use it again, right, Judy? You won't mind,
Absolutely.
will you? Okay.
There's no such thing as stealing in this industry. It's sharing.
There you go, sharing and adapting. So if anyone else has a question live, go ahead and raise your hand while we're waiting to see if anyone else, because most of the questions we just answered also would raise their hands. I want to ask Judy something and actually see if George can comment on this. I was struck by, and I'm going to go back a few slides. I was struck by the this slide that shows how much you were able to pick up, and so in your Roll the Change Week, Judy, my understanding is if I have change in my tin can or my piggy bank, I take it during the rock and roll event, for example. I'll take it over to the school and I'll drop it off, and come back for it, or I drop it off and sit there while it's counted, or what do I do?
You can do either. We've had people who will leave it with the teacher. A lot of teachers will leave their coin jars with their names in it with the teacher who's setting things up. We've had people who come in with their coin jar, and they'll sit there with us, and sometimes they'll join us and help us roll it because they get going on it, and it's actually a lot of fun.
So that's one idea. The other idea I had, and this is the one I'm wondering about. So generally you have people coming in with change who need that money to deposit in the bank. Aren't there other people in the community, you know, who have a change jar and they don't really need that change and they might be willing to donate it? Have you ever had anyone say, take my change jar and use the change either as a prize, once it's rolled, use it as a prize, or split it among the, or use it as a challenge, or split it among the people participating? Has anyone done that?
Well, not specifically here, but in Nashua, when we rolled this out this year, there's an organization down there that is, they use this method for fundraising. They actually, in the fall, will go, and they have people in yellow aprons. I think they're called penny pickers or something like that. They'll go and pick up your coin jars, and that's their major fundraiser. Mm-hmm. So they were a little reluctant in that area to do a lot of the Roll Your Change Week because this organization obviously had discovered that secret that I discovered not so long ago. That
someone else does that, but they do it as a fundraiser for their organization.
Right.
So that was sort of competitive then.
Yes, it's a little bit competitive, so we're trying to work with them to see if maybe we can do both or have it set up so there'll be a donation container in the branch. So if somebody had a couple rolls they wanted to put in for donation, they could do that. But that's not a bad idea.
Well, I'm just struck by the teenager who was throwing her pennies away, and I've seen other people do that. I have seen people throwing pennies in wastebaskets.
Yeah.
And it's quite an amazing thing. And I was thinking, well, there might be some people who are well-to-do who would give you their change thing, and then at the end, you could use that as the match. So in the same way that you had that one bank who was donating 10%. Mm-hmm. Of whatever anyone deposited, and instead you could, you know, either for change that was unclaimed, half of it could go to the organizing organization to support the cost, and the other half could go to the depositors. It's just a thought, because I know plenty of people who would probably be happy to get rid of their change jar.
Yeah. That's a good point. One thing I did forget to mention in my talk was that this year the entire state of New Hampshire is rolling out a form of Roll Your Change Week. We have a group of asset building coalitions that meets on a regular basis, and we also do Vita sites as well. So everybody heard about the idea, and we're all working in our communities doing Roll Your Change Week. So it should be an exciting year to see what the impact is.
And George, do you know anyone who takes change donations or solicits them?
I do not. I mean, just primarily because it becomes a good marketing tool for the banks and credit unions to reach out to their current members and customers, and their self-interest is to see those accounts increase.
Okay.
But it's an interesting idea, Janet.
Well, okay. I'll take that. Interesting idea.
Well, no, I mean it is, and it's truly.
Yeah, no. I was taking it sincerely, George. Don't worry.
Okay.
Any other questions before we sign off? It's almost 2:30. It's a minute shy, and that's our sign-off time. Or comments? George, any closing comments?
Well, once again, this is it's a simple and effective tool that becomes embedded in your community. People like it. It's fun. Your responsibility over time, or the organization's responsibility over time, will lessen, and or you'll have the flexibility to be even more creative. It is a great way to get people engaged in this whole concept that Judy described very well about changing a need to save to a want to save. Very practical effort. So thank you for this opportunity to present this to you.
Well, thank you, George, and thank you, Judy, and thank you, Renee, for organizing this entire webinar. And thanks to all of you who participated, we really hope that you pick this idea up and roll with it, as they say, and that it causes change to happen in the life.
Wow. I hope you practice that.
Yeah, I just made that up. In the lives of the low-income or the working families in your communities. And once again, we will be emailing out to all the participants and actually to the entire RuFES Action Network this website link so you can listen to the webinar again if you want to and watch it. You'll be able to do that, or look at all these handouts and use them and adapt them at home. We'll also, sometime in the next few days, be sending you an evaluation of this webinar to get your ideas on how it could have been better. And also, in that little webinar, in that little evaluation, we might ask you whether you think you might be trying this at home. And so think about it, let us know, and by all means, let us know if you have any questions or challenges related to it, and we will try to get you connected to anyone who can help. But of course, you can contact George and Judy yourselves. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and
thank you, everyone.
Look for the next notice of a RuFES Refresher webinar.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks.
Hello?
Hi, I'm here.
I'm here.
Okay.